everyone. My name is Soohyun. I'm in South Dakota State University, and again, I'm very honored to be receiving this Best Paper Award, and I want to acknowledge not only my two co-authors for this paper, Xilan, who is in the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and Elizabeth Kish at Kansas State University. But this is actually a work of cooperative neighbors, which consists more than just three of us. So a little bit of that research project we need to acknowledge is that it's a multi-state research group that consists of 13 different, mostly land-grant universities and mostly extension specialists who are really interested in the work of the behavior economics and the family economics. So our project is also supported partially from the USDA NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, and we're very appreciative of that. So as that project is for 5 years, we decided to look at the behavior economics and financial decision making across the lifespan. And one of the most important financial decisions is the student loan decision making. So that we wanted to study what are the determinants of the student loans and what really goes into the process of student loan decision making by households and the families. And we could not start narrowing down the research questions without looking at what's being done. So that embarked our study of student loan decision making literature review. And what we did is basically we wanted to look at the current trends, and we wanted to look at the effect of education loans and on college enrollment. How does that affect the college enrollment, and the effects of the education loan on beyond the college and career? So does it affect on the personal life decisions? So this is a literature review. So we reviewed about 68 different articles from a lot of various disciplines, mostly economics and some from sociology. So all of us who were in that multi-state group worked together. So in the current trend, you probably have heard that currently, or as of 2012, 38 million people are affected or has an outstanding student loan debt. It may have increased already. And currently, the $1.3 trillion are the aggregate amount of the student loan debt nationally. And so what does that affect, and how do we go about really looking at it? We first wanted to look at some theories that affects or trying to understand this student loan decision making. And the most well-known or well-used theory for this one is human capital theory by Gary Becker and Minster and Schultz from the 60s. Is an individual will take out the student loan when the anticipated benefit equals or is greater than the cost that's associated with it. And that's a rational model, and we did find a lot of support for that in terms of the economic research. But there's another theory that we looked at, which is the state status attainment model, which is that the parental expectations about the parental socioeconomic status and their expectation about the children's educational attainment passes on to the children's, and that affects the family's decision making on taking out the loans and saving for the college for the next generation. And there's an intergenerational transfer, and of all of those. Reviewing the literatures on those lines, we found that the parental expectation was really important, and the parental savings for college did really impact the children's education level. So, and about the student loan and the financial aid process, we found a lot of ideas that were not conclusive in a way, because the financial aid process itself is very complex. It's not uniformly determining any one person's attainment of the higher education. So it needs to be studied a lot more in depth, and that's what we found. And we also trying to find the literature on the perception about the debt. And what we found is that a lot of researchers have found actually that the younger generations view the college loan and education loan as not a form of debt anymore, but it's an investment for the future. So that's a lot of more acceptance levels on the loans. But it did affect, as our final line of findings, the theme is that it did affect their life beyond their college. So it did affect their retirement, it did affect their family formation, housing decisions. So what we concluded was that the financial education loan itself was not conclusively, or it was not necessarily leading to more the higher attainment of the college education, but then there needs to be more comprehensive view and more in-depth research on this matter. So that's what we have concluded, and we are really glad that this literature review piece was a best paper award, and it was a little challenging to present because there is no methodology, but then we found that we hope that this implies for more research into what goes into the decision making of the student loan debt. So, thank you very much.